have to ask them that, are you making this company for making your living from it, or are you making this company for selling it to somebody, creating a valuation and taking an exit? Trust me, friends, today the scenario is such that out of 100, at least 60% people are coming to tell me that हम तो ये कंपनी बना ही रहे हैं ताकि वैल्यूएशन क्रिएट करेंगे और एग्जिट कर लेंगे. बॉस, डोंट फॉरगेट, इन्वेस्टर अगर पैसा डालता है तो उसको भी पैसा अपना बनाना है, तो वो आपको एग्जिट तब तक नहीं देगा जब तक उसका पैसा नहीं बना है, और पैसा तो अल्टीमेटली प्रॉफिट से ही बनता है. बट लेट्स सी हाउ दैट वैल्यूएशन की जर्नी भी कैसे कर सकते हैं और वैल्यू की जर्नी भी कैसे कर सकते हैं. सो वेयर इन्वेस्टर सीज वैल्यू. First and the foremost thing, what we've tried to do is we've tried to make this session as far as possible from the real examples. We've tried to take as much examples of real startups that are there today, so that people can correlate. We've taken a few examples from Shark Tank India, US, and a lot of other case studies as well, ताकि आपको उनकी जर्नी सता सके और आपकी उनकी जर्नी एक्सप्लेन करते हुए how that value was created, we can show it to you. So the first and the foremost thing in value creation that comes up is the unique selling proposition. From where the unique selling proposition is in place. Like for example, हम ये कहेंगे कि आपका जो product है, what is unique about the product? Is it a painkiller for the customers, a must-have thing, or a must-have product? यानी वो लेने से हमारा कोई pain solve हो रहा है, then yes, that is gonna be sold, or it is something which I must have. अगर ये दो चीजें हैं, then it's a sure shot है. But अगर ऐसा है कि इससे it is some kind of, अगर मिला तो अच्छा, chances are a little less that your product gets sold. At the same time, we would have always heard कि innovation करो, innovative product लेकर आओ. Boss, question is, हर कोई तो innovation कर नहीं सकता है. कुछ नया invent करने के लिए हम scientist नहीं है. But at the same time, we have to understand that innovation is not about creating altogether new thing. ऐसा नहीं है कि पुरानी चीज को जमीन से उखाड़ के फेंक दो और कुछ नया लेके आओ तभी innovation होगा. No. If you can do something which creates value to your customers, increases your market share, either you are doing it something differently या आप कोई different service या product लेके आ रहे हो. ये कोई भी चीज अगर हम करेंगे तो हम innovation कर रहे हैं. Innovation can be brought in from a lot of features, which can be like price कम कर दिया, नया feature add किया, aesthetics ला रहे हो, convenience ला रहे हो. All of this also adds value. So the main core thing which we are trying to say is प्रोडक्ट कुछ डिफरेंट कर रहा है या डिफरेंटली लेकर आ रहा है, और वो मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंटली कस्टमर की जर्नी में वैल्यू ऐड कर रहा है. दैट इज द बायर्स नीड गेटिंग मीट. दैट इज द कोर थिंग. केस स्टडी से हम ये बताना चाहेंगे. फॉर एग्जांपल, ओला और उबर, नोबडी वुड हैव नोन देम 10 years बैक, बट टुडे वी नो इट. व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम दैट दे सॉल्व? ऑटो रिक्शा या टैक्सीज तो पहले भी थी, बट व्हाट दे सॉल्व्ड इज कि द तरीका जिससे वो हमें उपलब्ध होती थी, दैट इज व्हाट दे चेंज्ड. दे ब्रॉट इट डिफरेंटली. एट द सेम टाइम, अगर हम बहुत इनोवेटिव कंपनी को याद करेंगे तो हम किसे बोलेंगे? वी विल कॉल इट Amazon, Google और Apple. Correct? These are the three names which would definitely come to our minds when we want to talk about any innovative businesses. But do you know Google was not the first who invented the search engine. In fact, it was the 13th. Google was the 13th one who brought the search engine, but yet they have been called as the most innovative companies because what they did was they understood the pain, what the buyer needed, and brought that. Secondly, Apple ne majority success what they have got is through selling iPods. But for your knowledge, iPod was not created by Apple. Apple ने iPod नहीं बनाया था. In fact, Apple paid $100 million to the company जिसने iPod बनाया था. Similarly, what we are only trying to say is innovation is important, but innovation does not mean आपको scientist बन जाना है. Does not also mean that first movers को ही advantage है, but वो buyer की need को समझ के अगर आप अच्छे से present कर पा रहे हो, definitely you are creating value for the investor, and that is one thing which they will definitely see in your business as a must-have. Let's move further. The second and the most important thing is the people. Now, the second value that gets created in the business is from the people, the stakeholders. Now, when we call people, it is everybody. It is the customers, it is your team, it is your vendors. From all of them, the value can be created. Like for example, अगर हम customers की बात करें, the first and the foremost thing amongst the customers that will be seen is how large is your market size. बोलेंगे कि आप जहां जिस बिजनेस में उतरे हो उसमें धंधा कितना है. Let's for example take an example of Nykaa. Nykaa had a bigger market size, a market size which reached to most of the women of India today. If we look at First Cry, उनकी टेक्निक क्या थी? They took a community based approach. All mothers, all women को नहीं टारगेट किया, but all mothers को टारगेट किया, yet a bigger market size. And because of the mothers की loyalty onto the product, they started getting repeat customers. So a bigger market size results into a bigger turnover, results into a bigger profit, results into a bigger valuation. Now let me give an example of what happens आपकी अगर market size छोटी है. Very recent examples. I believe ये एक दो एपिसोड पहले ही ये हुआ. इनफैक्ट वी वर मेकिंग दिस प्रेजेंटेशन और वी came across this Shark Tank का episode which was about watch out wearables, wherein he had created specifically the founder had created a watch which was for age group of 6 to 10 years. जो watch होगी जो आपके बच्चे पहनेंगे, and if they want to connect you in case of emergency, they can do so. Now, is there a need for this product? Yes, there is a need for this product because all the parents जिनके बच्चे age group of 6 to 10 years है या 12 years है are worried about the security and safety of their children in this age. But how much? What is the size of that people? और एक किसी ने वॉच ले ली और वो outgrow हो गया तो वो size तो खत्म हो गई. They are now not again going to be needing their products. So in that case, they don't have a repeat purchase and they have a smaller market size. The question would be, नंगा नहाएगा क्या और निचोड़ेगा क्या? मार्केट ही इतनी छोटी है. अगर आप 100 करोड़ की मार्केट देख रहे हो, उसमें से अपना शेयर वुड बी से 10%, तो 10 करोड़ की तो मार्केट होगी या आपकी टर्नओवर होगी. उसमें से आप क्या कमाओगे और आप इन्वेस्टर को क्या दोगे? So very important to identify what is the market size of your customers. We move forward. Ultimately, before the business is built, before the revenue and the turnover comes in, पैसा किस पे लगता है? तो पैसा लगता है टीम पे, founders पे. So absolutely the money is on you people. The investor will look at you and put in the money. So that is why it is you. And at the same time, from you comes the differentiator. क्यों ये बिजनेस आप कर सकते हो और कोई और क्यों नहीं कर सकता है? लाइक फॉर एन एग्जांपल अगेन, दिस इज बूस्ट स्कूटर इज अ कंपनी जिसमें बंदे ने चालू किया था विद द अजम्पशन कि मैं एक इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल का स्कूटर टाइप्स लूंगा. ही इज टेकिंग इट फ्रॉम आउटसाइड. व्हाट ही इज डूइंग इज सारे कॉलेज में जो कैंपसेस है वहां पे वो स्कूटर रखा है, एंड द service, the business that is going to be into is to give service of the scooters on rentals to people who want to commute between the campus. Now, the question that the investors would ask is why this business is not copyable. आज आप कर लो, बना भी दो, business चल भी गया, but the question would be कल कोई और इसमें enter क्यों नहीं हो सकता है? What is it that cannot be copied and it is unique to you? The answer was nothing. क्योंकि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स नहीं है ऐसे कि वो कोई और नहीं एंटर कर सकते हैं. स्कूटर आप नहीं बना रहे हो, कोई और आ रहा है. एनी टाइम एनी अदर कंपनी, फंडेड कंपनी, एक्सपीरियंस कंपनी विल कम इनटू प्ले एंड यू विल बी आउट. व्हाई वुड इन्वेस्टर पुट इन मनी इन सच अ केस? बट यस, if there is something which can be your experience, your education into the sector, maybe your past working, in fact you would have seen that investors like those founders जिनकी already एक existing business हो चुका हुआ है. Failed or succeeded, that doesn't matter. But since you have an experience of doing business, that is definitely considered as +1. Obviously, in investors के favorites होते हैं IIT और IIMs के graduates and serial entrepreneurs. So definitely you get a value if one of your founders or co-founders are a part of any of these teams or have a previous experience, or at least you have such people on your board of advisors. All of this would definitely add value because that will help you understand your unique differentiator that should be derived from your own strength. So that's another place from where the value gets created in your business. And that's another aspect for which the investor would give some points, some marks before giving you the final take. Let's move forward. So what we are trying to say is that you will get your differentiator from what the buyer is needing that is the buyer's need, and what is your and your team's skills. When you combine all of it, the place that it matches, that's where the differentiator gets created. That's where you get your valuation being created. It is a bliss and a blessing to know your differentiator and to do your business from this vantage point. Further, आगे बढ़ते हैं. What is the third area for which the valuation is being given, the value is created, is the promotions. आप कौन से चैनल से अपना प्रोडक्ट प्रमोट कर रहे हो और कितनी डिफरेंट आपकी रेवेन्यू स्ट्रीम्स हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल, यू वुड हैव सीन that whenever people say that, boss, I'm not dependent only on online, or I'm not dependent only on brick and mortar yani offline stores, I'm omni channel. What is omni channel? मतलब हमारी रेवेन्यूज दोनों जगह से आ रही है, ऑफलाइन से भी और ऑनलाइन से भी, which is very important because today in today's scenario कोई भी अगर सेक्टर, कोई भी अगर स्ट्रीम डाउन जा रहा है, you have a backup, which is what investors really would like. कि आपकी revenue streams क्या है? Are you dependent on only one stream, or you have created multiple revenue streams? Are you dependent on one channel for delivery of your product or your services, or to get your customers, or you have multiple channels through which you do your distribution, do your delivery, do your customer acquisition, for which you get value? Pricing. The fourth and another foremost area जिससे you get valuation created is you can create your differences. आपका product वही है, आप distribute वैसे ही करते हो, आप उन्हीं customers को करते हो, but yet अगर आप pricing में कुछ अलग कर पा रहे हो, then yet you are able to generate that value. Like for example, Jio did it. Jio बहुत बड़ा example है, हम relate नहीं कर पाते हैं, सही बात है, but yet what they did is they created their unique position through value, in the value through the pricing part. इतना स्लैश प्राइस कर दिया लोगों से कि कोई कॉम्पीट ही नहीं कर पाता है. एट द सेम टाइम, इफ यू आर अवेयर ऑफ द SaaS मॉडल, SaaS इज जैसे जैसे आप किसी सर्विस को यूज करते हो वैसे वैसे आप उसको पे करते हो. यू डोंट नीड टू पे देम ऑन द एंटायरिटी. दैट इज कॉल्ड द SaaS मॉडल, व्हिच इज व्हाट one of the loved models by the investors today. So if you are using any of those pricing mechanism into your business model, then also it is a plus one for the investors. At the same time, अगर आप टेक्नोलॉजी अपने बिजनेस में कहीं से इंप्लीमेंट कर पा रहे हो, नाउ टेक्नोलॉजी कैन बी फॉर टू थिंग्स. आइदर आपका बिजनेस ही टेक्नोलॉजी पे डिपेंडेंट है, या तो आप बिजनेस की ऑपरेशनल एफिशिएंसी को इंप्रूव कर रहे हो थ्रू द टेक्नोलॉजी. ये दोनों के लिए आपको वैल्यू मिलेगी, बट द वैल्यू दैट यू गेट फॉर बोथ इज डिफरेंट. बिकॉज एक में आप देख पाओगे दैट देयर इज नॉन लीनियर ग्रोथ. whenever there is businesses which are using the technology as their main part, as the main core of the businesses, उस businesses की एक unique trait है कि उसमें खर्चा fix लगता है, and then whatever growth you get, it's a non-linear growth. It's a huge gap in the profitability once you grow, which is definitely seen by the investors. And hence आप देख रहे होंगे you will get fintech, edtech, सभी businesses के पीछे tech लग जाता है. People feel tech लग गया तो सीधे सीधे valuation मिल जाएगा और आप कूद जाओगे. No, it doesn't happen like that. But yes, definitely if tech is around your businesses, it is definitely given the value. Does funding guarantee success? No, funding don't guarantee success. And this is a very, very important point. I know कई बार ऐसा होता है कि the founders come to us very excited that I want to create a plan, और हमारा जो business है 5,000 crore तक जा सकता है, and we are going to be taking the money and we're going to be succeeding. What we have to do is, very sadly, is balloon में pin मारना पड़ता है, because funding don't guarantee success. What is important is funding is required for you to grow and scale the businesses, but just because you have got funding does not mean आप succeed करोगे ही करोगे. इसलिए very importantly, and as a responsible advisor, I felt it is important to put this points across in this presentation is that beyond generating value, what all you need to have, a must have, how will you become an investor ready before you go to any investor, so that आप पैसा मिलने के बाद definitely succeed करो. So let us understand a few things where people have failed even if they have taken money and money into millions. Example, system and processes. आपके वहां system और processes नहीं है. आज आप छोटे हो तो आप मेस को मैनेज कर पाते हो. Once you receive the funding, you grow प्रोपोर्शनेटली नहीं, डिसप्रोपोर्शनेटली आप ग्रो होते हो, तो जितना आप बढ़ते हो उसके साथ ही वो मेस भी बढ़ता है और उसको मैनेज करना डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है. तो इट ब्रॉट्स टू अ ड्रॉप डाउन. यस, सो लेट मी गिव यू एन एग्जांपल ऑफ मैकडॉनल्ड्स. अगर आप मैकडॉनल्ड्स को भी स्टोरी सुनेंगे, तो मैकडॉनल्ड्स वर नॉट द ओरिजिनल इनोवेटर्स ऑफ द फ्रेंचाइज और ऑफ द बिजनेसेस. इट वाज, yes, right, the McDonald brothers who were the ones who actually created it. But later on Ray Kroc brought it to a level जहां पे उसने सिस्टम और प्रोसेसेस को इतना ज्यादा रिपीटेबल बना दिया कि आप कहीं पे भी लेकर जाओ, प्लग एंड प्ले करो, आपको मैकडॉनल्ड सेम वे में आपको प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी मिलेगा, सेम डिलीवरी मिलेगी, सेम सर्विस मिलेगी. When you can do that, that is only when you can guarantee success with money, because your processes and systems are repeatable, standardized, which you can take it up. Secondly, अगर हम flip करें और Pepper Tape की बात करें, then Pepper Tape had also raised a huge amount of money. They were into on-demand grocery supply. जैसे ही पैसा आया, they grew themselves very large. But what happened is, जितना बड़े उतने ज्यादा डिमांड को, उतनी ज्यादा इंक्वायरीज को सिस्टम और प्रोसेस हैंडल नहीं कर पाए. डाउन 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 चला गया, इतना डाउन चला गया कि इवन इफ दे केप्ट ऑन पंपिंग मनी, कस्टमर्स डिड नॉट come back because the service that was required or expected from a startup was not received. Hence, I would suggest that before you go into your funding, you should pass two things: the business scalability test, and you should also check your funding readiness. One of the important parts for it would be a system and a process in being in place, which should be standardized, repeatable, and which is also for a scalable business. Let's move further and understand what can be furthermore pitfall wherein हम गिर सकते हैं. Is the inefficient utilization of funds. ये बहुत important हो जाता है. We've seen people doing partying because they've raised funds. It is a good sign कि आप funds raise कर पाए. It shows that investors have faith in your product, investors have faith in your business and in you. But वो faith पे stand करना important है. और वो तब हो पाता है जब आप वो हर पैसे से that you have received from the investor or you are asking from the investor, उससे आप 50x grow कर सको. Because once you have received the funds, you will not be able to raise your another round till the time you have grown from x to maybe 5x और वो value आप दिखा पाओ. इसलिए every money, every penny that you spend or you ask from the investors, ask yourself that question: will I be able to make 1x का 5x, 1 rupee का 5 rupee from this money at least? Then it is the right time and it is the right way to put in the money. There were ample number of startups who have failed because of it. मेरी screen छोटी पड़ जाती, but to give you quick examples of, say for example, Argo में ऐसा हुआ कि उन्होंने पैसे लिए. Let me first take 99 ड्रेस, वो थोड़ा सा ज्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग है. 99 ड्रेसेस में they were giving गर्ल्स के ड्रेसेस वो लोग लेते थे सेकेंड हैंड, क्योंकि यू वुड हैव सीन दैट गर्ल्स बाय वेरी हैवी ड्रेसेस, पहनते एक और दो बार है और उसके बाद आई कांट वेयर द रिपीट ड्रेस. तो व्हाट टू डू विद दोस ड्रेसेस? यस, द पेन पॉइंट इज देयर. यस, देयर इज अ मार्केट फॉर इट. So they entered into it and they started into second hand dresses. Did good. If I'm not wrong, they raised $1 million. Wrong वहां पे हो गया कि after raising that money, they did not only focus on their area, पर लगा अरे यार थोड़ा और भी तो कर सकते हैं, अभी ड्रेसेस तो हम कर ही रहे हैं, why not move from dresses to other lines? Like for example, renting में घुस जाते हैं, ये ट्राई कर लेते हैं, and into trying that multiple stuff, the money got vanished. एंड जो लाइन को उनको डेवलप करना था ताकि उसी को पे ज्यादा फेथ रख के नेक्स्ट लाइन ऑफ फंडिंग आ सके, दैट डिड नॉट कम इन. अल्टीमेटली दे हैड टू शट डाउन. सिमिलर अगर हम आर्गो की बात करें, आर्गो केस में उन्होंने पूरा पैसा टेक्नोलॉजी में डाल दिया, इतना ज्यादा पैसा टेक्नोलॉजी बनाने में डाल दिया कि जब वो टेक्नोलॉजी को एक्चुअली मार्केट में ले जाके लोगों के पास पहुंचाने का टाइम था, wherein they were actually needing funds to acquire the customers, nobody was ready to bet upon them. So the point that we want to make here is that every penny that an investor puts into your business, it is very, very important that you have a clear strategy in mind, a clear strategy on paper, that how you're going to make 1x ka 5x, so that out of that 5x, you can keep 2x for you and return 3x to your investor, or move ahead to the third investor who will come in and help you in your journey ahead. So we would suggest preparing a financial model, which is a strategic roadmap for you, your investors, and your team, will help you understand your way forward. So the major ones is what we covered, but yet these are not the only ones. There are many reasons which startup fail. As we said, lack of funds and poor financial planning, anticipating a very, very positive atmosphere or a positive change from the customers, and they'll be buying your product. A very poor customer service because you don't have a runway, you don't have a foundation laid down such that you can build over it, because your system, processes, leakages, checks and balances are not in place. It is always better to have control when you are smaller, because as you grow, your control are going to get loosened up. And lack of focus and moving into different directions, or it could be disputes between the people, are also the reasons why startups fail. One of the major reasons when we say about dispute is not only the dispute between the legal formalities, but also the legal disputes between the founders. We have seen that 80% of the first time entrepreneurs and startup founders don't go ahead and make shareholder agreements between the founders. They have verbal clarity, but they have not put it up on paper, because of which we have seen 5-year, 6-year-old startups failing, founders falling apart, bitching about each other because they had not come on terms with each other in writing as to, in case if we fail, what are we going to do? And in that scenario, what happens is it becomes more difficult, because आपको पुराना mess wrap up करना है और आगे की journey को देखना है. इसलिए very, very important that you have your founders alignment in place, have your shareholders agreement in place in the first phase itself. I hope we are moving ahead line, and hence my favorite thing and my favorite learning from the 3 idiots is, don't run behind funding. Make your company and your product so good that investors come running for you. Raise yourself first and then raise funds. We strongly believe in this, and we ask our entrepreneurs and founders to do the same. I will quickly take 2 case studies and tell you one more thing on the same point as to where the investors will see value in your business and what are the further pitfalls. I'm sure Tiny Owl, ये लोगों आप बहुत लोगों ने देखा होगा, especially the ones who are used to ordering food from outside. So before Zomato and Swiggy came in, Tiny Owl was in place. They had raised more than 200 crores. They had grown more than 4 times faster as to what Swiggy and Zomato is growing today. Their customers were very happy. 40% was their repeat customer base. They had grown to 11 cities in just 1.5 years. Superb story, right? If everything would have been in line, definitely they would have been one of the unicorns today. But this very happy story had a very sad ending, just like movies did not have a happy ending, when the reason for their main failure was inefficient utilization of funds. As I said, 200 crore आ गए, 1.5 साल में 11 cities में expand कर लिया, पर फिर वो 11 cities को system और processes नहीं दे पाए. इतने leakages थे system में that ultimately एक city को बंद करना पड़ा. At the same time, when they had money, they started burning huge money, and at the same time they started experimenting so many things that their runway went very, very short. And such a progressing, such a promising company also went down completely. One more example, and then I'll not bore you down with what more you have to take care. But yes, very, very important and very recent one. I think this was also a case where this is a slide which has been added last night. Flatheads was the founder who had come to Shark Tank in the yesterday's episode, and my team is calling me at 10 o'clock in the night, and ma'am is telling me, ma'am, जो आप बोल रहे थे same Shark Tank में आ रहा है, और वो Shark Tanks in founders को same चीजें बोल रहा है, same your product, your promotion, your words are being repeated. Should I add this in the slide? Like, yeah, please do it. I'm so happy you are able to understand and you'll be able to pass this on. So yes, this is our last minute editions. If you guys want to know more about them, go to yesterday's episode of Shark Tank and you will know more about what the investors advised the founder. But to give a quick brief, this founder had raised 10 crores in this previous round and now had come to Shark Tank asking for 75 lakhs. He had used the entire 10 crores in building the product. The product was the shoes, which was a breathable shoes. Good product. All the investors liked the products, but what they didn't like is कि 10 crore बना लिया, फिर भी sales में बहुत कम था, फिर भी customers were not taking the product, and yet he wanted to take the product and try new thing. अब उसको प्रोडक्ट चाहिए था कि अब मैं एक्सपोर्ट्स में ट्राई करना चाहता हूं क्योंकि इंडिया में नहीं हुआ. द पॉइंट इज, डोंट टेक मनी फॉर ट्रायल्स, एंड इफ यू टेक मनी फॉर ट्रायल्स, लेट देम नो दिस इज, वी हैव नॉट रीच द प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट. प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट यानी आपका प्रोडक्ट मार्केट ने एक्सेप्ट कर लिया है. वंस दैट इज डन, दैट इज द मोमेंट वेयर यू विल गेट अ वैल्यूएशन. उसके पहले जाओगे, शार्क्स खा जाएंगे. That is all what happened. The sharks were very good with him, but nobody funded him. One of the sharks did offer, but the founder realized that it is not the right time for him to take money and hence quit. But the main reason that the learning the founder gave all of us today was that if you have 10 crores, if you have raised funds, utilize it very, very efficiently, very, very carefully, which can be done when you monitor your funds, where it is getting used and what return you are getting out of it. Now I move to the last part of my presentation, and a very important point, which I believe you guys are here for, is to understand how the investors also give valuation or how they determine the valuation of a company. So definitely valuation is a science, and at the same time it is not a science, it is an art also. So it's a combination of story and numbers. आपके numbers क्या बोल रहे हैं वो भी important है, at the same time आपकी story क्या है, आप क्या business बना रहे हो, क्यों बना रहे हो, what is your story, how your numbers are getting weaved into it. That overall package is very, very important for them to understand the value. Do you get valuation at an idea stage? Yes, you do. I've listed a few companies which have got. Do you get valuation when I have just created a product but don't have a market yet for it? Yes, you do get. Do you get a valuation when it is a traction, थोड़े ही customers हैं, तो क्या investors आएगा? Yes, हर stage पे investor आता है, but जो value देता है वो अलग अलग होती है. So depending on your need and how do you see that you will be able to utilize and make more value from it, उस हिसाब से हम value लेते हैं, हम valuation देते हैं और money लेते हैं. So let's look at the different parameters which are important on which the valuation is driven. Definitely profit, EBITDA, earnings before interest, depreciation and taxes, profit after tax, your turnover. These are the financial part of it which are very important for getting the valuation, your projections, your scalability of your business, your monthly recurring income. But at the same time, there are factors which have equal weightage in your valuation but are subjective, not driven by numbers, are your management team, your capacity to disrupt, your technology, the number of clients that you have, the SKUs, the products that you have. All of it also adds value when you are determining the valuation of any company. Now I'll go a little technical and I quickly wrap it up. Is what are the methods of valuation? As a founder, you need to know your numbers really well. If not, connect with a consultant, understand the numbers and the pura business model mein numbers kaise ghumte hain clearly, because whenever you speak to a investor, they want you to know your numbers very, very well. If you fumble in that, they are not happy. So obviously the method of valuation ये भी आपको briefly थोड़ा पता होना चाहिए. So one is a multiple method. आपके turnover का multiple करते हैं 2 times, 2.5 times, and depends on the industry what the further number also at your stage. आपको वो as a multiple मिलता है for your business. Second is very, very brief. What is a venture capitalist method? बहुत basic है venture capitalist method. एज एन इन्वेस्टर अगर आप किसी बिजनेस में पैसा डालते हो, से फॉर एग्जांपल 100 रुपीज, और आपके माइंड में है कि यार मुझे 30% रिटर्न तो निकलना ही चाहिए ये बिजनेस से, और 3 साल के बाद ये 100 रुपए का 300 हो जाएगा, तो यू बैक वर्क कि अच्छा मुझे अगर 300 में से 30% या 100 का 30% यानी 30 रुपीज चाहिए, तो मुझे कितना स्टेक लेना पड़ेगा. सो यू डू योर बैक कैलकुलेशन दैट हाउ मच आई विल हैव टू टेक द स्टेक इन दैट कंपनी टू अचीव द वैल्यू दैट आई वांट. That in a simple language is done in a complicated manner in the venture capitalist method. And the third is the discounted cash flow method, which I know most of you must be aware, must have heard somewhere or the other, the ones who are looking for funding. Discounted cash flow is the potential of the company to make business is looked upon in the future years, and based on that, the valuation is arrived. These are a couple of examples. जैसे कौन सी इंडस्ट्री में क्या वैल्यू ली जाती है. If I give you an example, for example, अगर आपकी SaaS बेस्ड कंपनी है तो आपका एवरेज रेवेन्यू क्या है उसका मल्टीपल लिया जाएगा. आप होटल इंडस्ट्री में हो तो आपका एवरेज पर नाइट क्या है वो लिया जाएगा. अब टावर में हो तो आपका एंटरप्राइज वैल्यू विल बी डिटरमाइंड बाय द टावर्स. सो वैसे अलग अलग तरीकों से द वैल्यू गेट्स क्रिएटेड एंड कैलकुलेटेड. And the last part that I come upon is the exit. Because any investor who is coming into your business is not marrying with you permanently. वो एक एंड डेट के साथ ही आपके साथ ज्वाइन होता है कि भाई मैं आ रहा हूं पर मुझे बाहर जाना है, तो आप मुझे एग्जिट क्या दोगे? So there are various ways in which you can give them exit. One is secondary sale. एक investor जाएगा तो दूसरा आएगा, which is where we usually see the angel investors are the first who come into your business initially, and then later on they are taken over by the venture capitalists, the bigger investors who have a bigger potential and a bigger risk appetite and a bigger investment amount. They come in. Second can be self-purchase. A lot of time we see the promoters are now capable to take back the stake that they had given to investors. And the third important part, and one of the strategies to exit, is the IPO. For the same reason, we have kept our next session, which is on IPO, so that connectingly we can also let you know that agar aapko IPO ke liye jana hai, then what all you need to be ready beforehand and what are the complications and the benefits of doing it. So yes, one of the exit strategy and exit route is the IPO. Both the IPOs, SME IPO and the main board IPO, because even the VCs want to exit ultimately. So IPO is the exit strategy for the bigger VCs as well. And with this, I would like to end that Kabhi when you're looking at the investors, one step into their shoes and understand what they would want from your business. It will help you understand and get more clarity on what should I speak to them. Secondly, I would also say we have a funding readiness index, which if you guys want, we will share it across with you. It is a test which will let you know how much ready you are in your funding journey, in your startup journey, and also help you understand what is next that you need to do to take it up to the next level and become investor ready. With this note, I would like to say thank you very much for a patient hearing, and I'm open to any questions, and I hope we could add some value to your startup journey, because every startup that grows in India adds valuations to the overall growth of the country, adds value to the employment and each individual. But at the same time, it's our responsibility to see to it that every startup that goes down also hurts a lot of people who have been employed with those companies. We all of us very proudly say 10 में से 7 startups तो एक साल के अंदर बंद हो जाते हैं. But it is our responsibility to see to it how we can reduce that number, because every stop, every fall that it happens, it affects and it hurts most of us. So thank you very much. And we're looking forward if you have any queries. And Kathy, I hope I did justice. Now it's your turn.
Thank you, Nikki, for this wonderful and insightful session. And so for the first time, I realized that, apart from hearing and reading your presentation or going through that, how system, process, funding, promotion all go hand in hand. So till now, I was just looking for Nykaa as a beauty product and all those things. So what is the actual efforts they take, and how do they reach? We just came to know. So let us make this session a little more interactive. So I would request audience to raise their questions in the chat box. We'll just quickly take 1 or 2 questions as of now, and so that we can take our webinar ahead. So before we get a few questions from the audience, we already have received 1 or 2 questions in advance at the time of registration. I would like to read that first of all for you. So question number 1, generally you get funding for what kind of expenses, Nikki? One of the participants wanted to know that.
Correct, Kathy, that's a nice question, because a lot of people have this point that we want funding for creating the product. We want funding for this. So the question would be, for what all you will get funding? If you're looking at R&D, yes, you get funding, but there are typical kind of investors who would be ready to invest in that. Like, for example, there are big companies who are already multi-million-dollar companies, and then it is difficult for them to get into R&D and develop new products. If you are looking for funding for any kind of R&D or development for your products, then you have to go to those bigger companies. They will be able to fund you and help you and eventually even take over. Such is a case when you will see that most of the small startups are funded by big companies like Procter & Gamble or Imami and likes of them. They are the ones wherein they see that the startups can go faster, much faster than yours. So that is where you can get funding. At the same time, when it comes into the case like, you want funding for setting up the manufacturing facility, yes, you get funding for that. You want funding for especially, for the marketing or taking your product ahead, yes, you get funding for that. But at the same time, there are a lot of negative lists for which you do not get funding, which needs to be taken into account. Example, at times you say that, yeah, can I get a funding for paying the loans which is being taken by us? Sorry, nahi milega. Taking the stake of your other investors, milega? Depends. So what exactly would be the thing is, before you go outside for your funding needs, understand very clearly where are you going to be utilizing your funds. If you would hear any of the investors anywhere, the first question would be, what will you do with the money that you have raised? Utilization of funds, very, very important. Be very clear on that and be very specific on those amounts so that that can be further utilized for raising the value of those invested amount. I'll hold it up here for now.
Yeah. So Nikki, I'll take one more question quickly. So there was one participant who had asked that he has been in business for the last 30 years, but never thought in terms of valuation. How to do that?
Very, very true. I believe the one who is into business from 30 years must be reading a lot of newspapers also. इसलिए उसकी same feeling हो रही है कि यार ये बस मुझसे miss नहीं हो जाए. So what is happening? So I'm sure the 30-year-old business is doing a lot of value generation, यानी profit definitely कर रहे हैं. तभी इतने सालों से business sustain हो रहा है और खुद भी sustain हो रहे हैं. But now to move forward, it is not that only startups have a valuation. Even a company which is 30 years old, even a company which is into business since long, has a value and has a valuation, and investors would be interested in such companies. What you need to do is understand what is a differentiator, कैसे आप में business में पैसा डालने से, कौन सा investor आपके business में पैसा डालने से better return मिल सकता है इसको. That would be the right person. We always say, don't go for money. Money also has a color. From whom you are taking is very, very important. If your business is good, you will get money, but also understand from whom to take, because they should be able to contribute to your business much more than the money. So yes, understand from the 4 P's: your product, your pricing, your promotion channels, and your people, your stakeholders. इसमें से किसमें value है, bang upon that and go to a perfect investor to generate the valuation. And at the same time, I believe you may be in the right time to unlock the potential of your business and take the money. That would be all.
Okay. So Nikki, quickly, 1 or 2 questions more, and then we go ahead with the.
What I would suggest, Khyati, I think let's give Dinesh equivalent time, because there's a lot going to be interesting with the IPO part. And at the end, whatever still questions are there, I and Dinesh can still take it up.
Sure. So I would request audience to keep posting their questions in the chat box. We'll take all the questions all together once Dineshji's session is over. So now let's move forward to our another part of session, which covers the topic SME IPO, the process. So that has been taken up by Mr. Dinesh Kaushik, who has been an MBA with an experience of more than 18 years. Also, he is into capital markets, managing IPOs, fundraising, aggregating to over 1,000 crores. Okay. He is engaged in fundraising for SME, MSME, including loan part, mergers and acquisitions, private equity, joint venture, IPO advisory. So currently, Dineshji is busy, engaged in setting up a business, a US office for joint venture and strategic partnerships with US and European companies, facilitating fundraising from US private equity investors, and listing of Indian companies in US and European stock exchanges. So over to you, Mr. Dineshji. I hope the audience will get some complete detailed knowledge about SME IPO process. So may I request Dineshji to take it forward?
Thank you, Khyati. Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Dineshji.
Just a second. Let me put. Yeah. Am I visible also?
No. Yeah, now.
Yeah. Am I visible to all?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Very nice aspect of various valuation methodology, why valuation, what adds to the valuation, and how do we improve the value and valuation of the company has been given by my colleague Khyati, Nikki, very well. and I'm sure people would be benefited. One of the option which he has mentioned for an exit, because anybody who participates in the funding part of a venture, whether it is a startup or a mid-market segment or a existing technology based or brick and mortar, would require some funding. At the same time, they would require an exit also or some kind of monetization over a period of time. Am I audible? Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes,
think
you're
you.
audible.
Yeah, I could. So basically, there are IPOs considered for various aspects. I will run through. I'll make my presentation seen to most of the people. Just a second. Let me put it. Just a second. Is it seen by all?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, am I visible now, or there is some issue?
No, proper.
How do we? Kathy, I think just look into it.
It is visible. You can move your presentation. We can see.
Okay, I'm visible.
Yeah, yeah,
Fair
yeah.
enough. See, I will quickly run through few slides, which will really help us to cover what exactly SME IPO stands for and how the process runs, including how the valuations are done, including what are the intermediaries which are involved in this process. So to begin with, I will, yeah. See, just to tell you, SME IPO was started in 2010, and first IPO which came in 2012. The exchanges from PSE and NSE were started. Thereafter, there has been a great improvement. There has been instances of less number of issues in a particular year, but growth has been phenomenal. We see the market cap after issuance have also gone multiple times. If you see in terms of percentage, the percentage on main board, BSE, NSE has been 37, 41, 42%. 11 to 12 times market capitalization has happened in the last couple of years of those companies which were listed. But all is not good. Some of them have really lost the sheen, as some of the reasons which Nikki has pointed out has played around there also. That maybe the lack of scalability, lack of technology support, lack of management, managing the growth, and the product could not be stabilized. So some of the bad stories are also there, but it is a mix. Overall, in majority of the cases, SME IPO has been a great success as of now. And there are fantastically, if you see that number of companies which have come are fairly large. This is a graphical representation. I'm sure we will pass this. Just to give you an idea and a feel as to what kind of companies have come in past couple of years, companies which have got, I'm talking of January to June, this year only. There are companies, they have come with 10 crore, 10 to 25 crore and 25 and above. So if you see that the entire space is fairly large and there is a great presence of most of the companies. Initially, in few first year, there were IPOs which were of a small size, but we have seen very large IPOs which are coming up. Last we have seen is 76 crore rupees, which came for an this Rachna Infrastructure Limited. So you can say that the smaller and large, there is a great swing. And largely it is because there is a lot of flexibility which has been provided by the SEBI for deciding the eligibility criteria. That is the reason why most of the companies, even smaller companies, have also find their way in SME IPO. And the larger companies are also now finding its way to get funding from there. Next. Now, if I see, you see, these are all metrics which are So we see some of them have been covered by the Nikki, but basically there has to be a USP, strong demand, gap, technology supported, and scalability. These are some of the aspects which we see from the company. And generally, what has come in SME IPO is the companies which have got a track record of couple of years. So their profitabilities are set up, their sales are visible, the growth perspective is clear, and the company has stabilized. Unlike startups where you have funding at different point of time, these companies which are coming, they are, of course, they are not as stable and stabilized organizations as you see in the main board, where the criteria are more stringent and it requires a larger companies to participate in this. This is a window which has been given to a mid-sized company which has proved its mettle in the beginning of few years. It is stabilized. It has more possibility of going further and giving larger value to the investors. And many of the companies have gone for the main board upgradation also, where the unlocking of their valuation has gone multiple times. So there are various aspects which has to keep in mind by the kept in mind by the people, that you see, when you go for a public issue, it is not only the money which you receive, you assume a larger part of responsibility, transparency, and some kind of a discipline which is required to be observed by the company promoter. It has to be more transparent, it has to be more compliant, it has to be more system oriented, it has to have more reporting relationship on timely basis, and there are frequent commitments which is required at various level, including board level, because of the committees which are formed by for the purpose of corporate governance. So some of the things which are very, very important and may cost some money, may need participation and you see dedicated control and involvement of the top management. That has to be kept in mind, that those are the issues which one has to keep in mind where opting for SME IPO. See key points which we have in mind. I think I'm not able to get this. Just a second. Now. See, the SEBI came out with a guidelines for SME IPO because there was a greater demand. Earlier, we had OTCI, which unfortunately could not take off over the counter exchange of India. But then there was a mid segment, so SME IPO was initiated. There are basic difference between the main board and the SME IPO, that because there are some relaxed criteria of eligibility, there is less documentation to be given compared to the main board. Filing is for the prospectus or the DRHP is to the stock exchanges. It is not to be filed with SEBI, which reduces time and compliances. IPO grading is not required generally for a broad main board. This IPO grading is required, which is not required in here. And price discovery mechanism is also relatively easy. There are certain other obligations like minimum IPO size has to be, application has to be 1 lakh. And advertisements, statutory advertisements, which are required for main board, which are large in number and it requires more money. So that has been done away with it. So in all, listing has been made easy, cost effective, faster, and with minimum moderation in costing. Similarly, post-listing, there has been obligations which are of a very great nature in terms of larger companies. SME IPO companies have a smaller obligations to go for reporting and disclosure requirements even after listing. Prominent features which are to be kept in mind is that you see it has to be 100% underwritten issue. merchant bankers who is responsible has to go for at least 15% or more, but minimum 15% has to be taken by them, and otherwise the issue has to be 100% underwritten. So while evaluating the companies or accepting the companies for taking them to SME IPO, the merchant banker and the underwriters are very, very careful, and they go for deeper analysis, governances, business model of the company, and most importantly, the promoter at their background. Then it is easy for going for migration. After 2 years, the company can go for migration. There are certain conditions and stipulations which are required to be complied by the companies to be migrated to that. To add transparency, liquidity mechanism of market making has been mandated for a period of 3 years. And market maker, which is a again SEBI regulated and stock exchange regulated broker, who are part of this system, and they manage the liquidity which is required because the size is small. The liquidity may be an issue. To ensure that two-way quotes are given, market making is appointed, and they remain. So there is a greater amount of liquidity which has been ensured through this mechanism. The fees, listing fees and publication fees are small compared to the main board, so it is cost effective also. Now, these are the comparisons, main board IPO and BSE listing. I'll quickly run through it. Maybe another 5 minutes I'll take, and so that I can attend more questions. The minimum criteria of a paid capital is 10 crore rupees, whereas and not more than 25 crore rupees. For a company which is going for SME IPO, minimum allotment size is 1,000, where it is only 50. The application size is different because in a main board IPO, 10,000 to 15,000 rupees per person can do, maximum of 2 lakhs rupees, which is the criteria for a a retail investor. Similarly, in case of IPO, there is at least 1 lakh rupees, which is to be application size. SEBI main board ERHP has to be submitted, and observations are required, whereas in case of SME, it is only stock exchange which is involved, which is relatively faster. But stock exchanges assume a greater responsibility of vetting and clearing it. So earlier, we never used to have a meeting or presentation with the committee. Now it is required. And IPO grading, other things I have already covered, so there is no requirement of duplicacy. I'll move on to this. I'll take up case studies quickly because it is just to show you that the kind of companies which are coming. See, for example, this company which is available, they have 31 crore, 17 crore, 15 crore rupees. So that is the revenue system or the achievement levels, and 2.5 to 3 crore rupees was the average profit after tax, EPS. And accordingly, based on the EPS, PE value, and other parameters, the pricing is done. Generally, PE multiples and other things are compared, and relative valuations are arrived at. I will quickly. Now, this is the process. You have to appoint a merchant banker. Restructuring of capital means you have private limited companies, which is to be converted into limited company. You have partnership companies. This has to be converted again into limited companies. So that is a reorganization of your capital, because there is a minimum condition that 25% shareholding has to be given to the public. So when you are looking for a control, you are raising some money, funds. So you have to have a certain eligible and available equity so that you can raise a reasonable amount of funds from the market and people get interested. The larger the value of IPO and decent pricing, larger is the success of the company for IPO. Then there is a due diligence process, appointment of other intermediaries like CDSL, NSDL, dematerialization, registrar and transfer agents, advertising agency, PR agencies, and other things. The documents are submitted and marketing strategies are decided. Filing of offer document to stock exchange, which requires a presentation and a visit by the stock exchange officials to the company and the plant where they are operating. Decided, issue prices are decided and allocation is done and listing is achieved. That is a simple process, but it involves typically 3 to 4 months time. For SME IPO, for main board, it takes 4 to 6 months time. So you have a advantage here. These are some of the regulations which we have to keep in mind when you are preparing your company for. These are applicable provisions: Companies Act, Security Contract Regulation Act, SEBI, Security Board of India, Disclosure, LORD, BSE, NSE regulations, and other things which are available on a public domain. But it is the job of a merchant banker to carry out the due diligence that the company is compliant completely, and they are required to issue certificates to that extent. There are certain entities which are not eligible. Predominantly, there has been instances where promoters, or in their individual capacity, or in some cases where they have been director on the board of a company, or they have been promoter, they have participated in some activities which were not considered to be good from the capital market perspective by the Security Exchange Board of India. So those companies or those promoters sometimes have been barred and penalized. And those promoters, until that penalty portion is completed, they are not allowed to go in the public. But there are two set of activities which are not willful defaulters and fugitive economic offenders. If there is any director or a promoter or an independent director associated with the company, which in past has been a willful defaulter or has been declared by RBI or regulatory authorities as fugitive economic offender, they are never permitted to be going in for any kind of a public issuances. So there are some relaxation, but there are certain debarments also. I have given a broad idea as to the costing because a lot of questions we had received in the registration time that what are the indicative costing. So I've given on the one side merchant banker, depository and initial stock exchange fees, advertisements, printing, stationeries, legal advisors, registrar and transfer agent, market making fees for the first year because it runs into 3 years, and some miscellaneous out-of-pocket expenses. It comes to around 40 to 45 lakhs for an issue. And these are which are very in a very small manner may vary from 5 to 10 lakhs rupees here and there based on the size of the issue. Most importantly, the underwriting and marketing, which will be determined based on the size of the issue, because larger the size, larger the reach, and larger the dissemination of application forms and involvement of investors, which is required. So sometimes that takes a little longer, but this is the fees which would be coming other than marketing and underwriting fees. So maybe you could keep that in mind, and further detailing can be discussed with us. There is no issue. Now, these are the factors when we, other than whatever has been covered by Nikki, which comes in terms of the valuation, creating value, and businesses. Our system is pretty stable because the companies have really gone positive. For startup, there is a separate mechanism. For companies which are going for public issue or offering the equity to public, there we have criteria like EPS, turnover of the company, PE multiple, peer review, and profit after tax. Based on these are quantitative factors. Qualitative factors which we also go in for: the quality of management, their past track records, the business they are doing, how scalable the business is it supported by technology, what is new. I give you an example. There was a company which has been into transport business for many years, and their sons who had gone abroad and they studied technology, they came back and they started a platform for a transport business. So that was the USP of a company which created value from a simple, ordinary transport business of 400-500 trucks, created a national-based, technology-based platform, and that company came out as a very successful company now. So you have to think, and before coming as to what kind of value addition you are going to do. With the respect of disclosure perspective, we don't need quarterly reporting. Half-yearly reporting is required. Shareholding pattern, they are also half-yearly and event-based if there is any change that is required. Rest of the things are made pretty simple, easy, and now we can go for Q&A session in case somebody has. I've tried to cover very quickly some of the things which are very, very essential and important. And I'm sure my team will share this PPT in case somebody needs it to read at leisure. But I can address some of the questions if there is anything which is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Dineshji. It was again wonderful session. I'm sure people would have a lot of questions to be answered and all. So before we start Q&A, thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Dineshji, for this at least an insightful preliminary session. So for the detailed discussion, obviously my speakers would be available offline also. You can connect with us. Their contact details would be shared with you. So I believe before Q&A, Nikki, would you like to have some?
Yes, sure. Yes. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dineshji. It was a wonderful session, and definitely the ones who are looking to fundraise need to understand that what's going to be the next step for fundraise and IPO, and SME IPO being the really hot topic today. The understanding of it is really important. So thank you, Dinesh, for it. And we are going to be open for Q&A. But just before that, I would like to take a minute to all our participants and let them know that we here right now at SNCO are of the vision that we learn together, we grow together, and we share. When we share, we grow. With the same philosophy, we are here up with two more initiatives. One is named as Sunday Inc., wherein we believe that all the experiences in this business world needs to be shared and needs to be accessible to everybody so that we learn from each other and don't make people's mistakes that has been made by others, and at the same time know what right the other person is doing so that we can do the same. So Sunday Inc. is going to be sharing about experiential learning. My team will be sharing across the details in the link. You can subscribe to it and you will get a very quick nugget and tips of the business world in your chat box or in your inbox every week. So that's about Sunday Inc. At the same time, when we are giving this, we expect one thing from you. We, as I said, that we learn from each other. Similarly, our team and we are working upon family businesses, trying to understand and develop further more on the family businesses. What are the challenges and what are the ways in which people have solved it and grown through it? So if you guys permit, we would be sharing across two links with you over the email. One is the family businesses survey. We would expect you to give us your feedback, your insights on how you have been running the family businesses, what challenges you have faced and how it has been solved. We will definitely share across with you the report of the survey and you will be the first ones to know it. And at the same time, the lucky ones, the ones whose insights have been really helpful, will also be getting published with the leading journals or the leading websites. That's the two part of it, two initiatives from our side, which we'll be liking to put it forward for us. I think, Khyati, let's take it up on the Q&A front and try and solve as much as we can and keep our value additions going on.
Sure, Nikki. So I think questions are still pouring in. But before we start with the chat box questions, Dineshji, we had received some questions at the time of registration. I would quickly start with one by one. So first question would be, what corporate governance of companies? How to validate projections of the companies, which ultimately leads to valuation?
See, with respect to corporate, there are two parts of it. Corporate governance, there are various committees which are to be appointed by the company. For example, audit and accounts committee, and then shareholders grievances committee and remuneration committee. Now, those committees are to be headed by independent directors, and the board needs to be constituted in such a fashion that there is a greater representation of independent directors and now female directors also. So those are basic reorganization or the framing which is required for going for further IPO processes. So that is one. With regard to second part of it, what kind of route and nothing. So this is a very varied subject. As I told you, the company had come with less than 2 crore rupees IPO also, and companies come with 76 crore rupees IPO also. And everybody has to go for 26% or 25% plus dilution also. The one more important aspect which I am going to share with you, which I missed out, is that you see today what we are doing is we are creating series A, B, C, D, different type of valuations which are coming. And so by the time you reach to a level, you have to offer to the public for an exit, it becomes very difficult that the company remains in control with the promoters. So the capital structuring which is required to be done and the offers which are to be done before IPO has to be very, very carefully understood and planned. Otherwise, what will happen is that you have given a large amount of dilution before IPO, and for IPO you give 26%. By the time you reach, the promoters are left with a very little equity in terms of the control. So under such circumstances, it will be difficult because then the dilution is there, the control, the interest and commitment of the promoters would be diluted, and they will not have any further possibility of raising funds because further dilution would result into further lowering of the value. So that is one aspect which I thought I will share with you. So people have to be very, very careful when they are raising pre-IPO equity.
I would like to add to what Dinesh ji is saying, because that's a very, very important point. Recently, we came across one of such companies wherein the person had raised money in the first stage, wherein he was at an idea stage and just his prototype was made. That time he had raised money, and for that smaller amount of money that he had raised, he had liquidated 50% to the investors. Now, when you liquidate such a high amount at a very early stage, you have to understand that your growth journey is going to start only when you're reaching at series A and B. That is when you are actually growing exponentially, for which you will require the funds to come in, and wherein the investor would want that at least 51% would be in your hand for the control. Now, when that person had already shared 50% and now he is going to raise further more funds, obviously he was going to dilute from his 50% stake, which would bring him down. And then the investor did not put in money in his business because he is not going to, two reasons. One, वो interest lose हो जाता है, because आपका धीरे धीरे your own shareholding will come into single digit. तो क्या मिलेगा? तो वो interest lose हो जाता है. That is point number one. And point number two, your control is lost. The founders are the eyes of the company. It is their vision which has made the company come into existence. Investors come in for putting in money. They cannot run your business. So you need to hold the money. You need to hold the equity stake. At the same time, when I'm saying this, it is equally important to understand that please don't go ahead and offer 0.25% to the investor or 1% to the investor. Such percentage offerings are also ridiculous. Investors would just laugh out and leave you. So please be reasonable. Take expert advice and understand what is the fair range between which you should be diluting, what amount, what percentage, and what valuation. These are the numbers wherein an expert advice is required and which should be taken off as a second opinion also, at least. I believe, Dinesh, you would agree on this point.
I would supplement. No, perfectly fine. That's a proper elucidation of the thoughts. What is important here is because the need-based requirement of funds and justifiable requirement of funds should be raised at every step. And I'm sure it is not that sacrosanct that if you don't have if you have less than 50%, the market has not responded. There are instances where people have gone below this, and over a period of time, they have issued some additional share as a preferential share over a period of time. But then in that case, those companies have really good visibility and they have a justifiable reason because the money was required and we had no other alternative but to go in for dilution pre-IPO. But in general, if I say 90% of the cases, that would not be viewed as a positive sign.
So I believe we can quickly move forward to the other questions, because I think we have a lot of questions. So Now, another question is for you, Dineshji, what are the benefits of IPO as well? Negative points, if any?
See, benefit is you get a greater visibility. Your products are recognized better. You give an exit to the people who have invested in your venture, or even for your own wealth creation. This is a good market. Third, compared to debt, this is considered to be a long-term money which is available, which requires if you want to be in the business and you want to raise further and grow, this could be a great vehicle for your capacity creations, diversifications, and enhancements. But this market rewards to those people where they perform well and take care of the stakeholders' development and growth also. So if you reward your shareholders in the long run, I'm sure that the markets are rewarded. Thirdly, this listed company shares are considered to be a good security for raising quick loans. Sometimes, the banks consider, because the promoters may not have that kind of a collateral securities and other things. So this could act as a collateral security if their shares are found, the companies are performing well. So the credibility perspective improves, product perspective it improves, visibility improves, exit comes, and it acts as a collateral. And servicing of the equity is relatively easy. Of course, it is little costly, but it is easy and possible for a growing business. And then one more thing, amalgamations and growth. Acquisition of the company becomes easy because then you can have all cash or cash share swap deals.
Okay.
Negative is, I don't see negative. Negative is that if the company or promoters are coming with a approach that, we just want to raise some money and then go out of it, those promoters are also punished very well in the market, but then they don't have anything. But compliance becomes very expensive. Compliance becomes a very well, it's a board kind of involvement. So one has to be very, very careful. CFO has to be there. Company secretary, compliance officers. All things are there, and regular reporting and documentations are of a higher level. Greater transparency and reporting. So these are, I don't call it as a negative, but these are all necessary compliances which are required, which makes it more smooth and good for the company. Otherwise, there is no negatives. I don't see any negative in an IPO.
So now, one question quickly, Nikki, for you from the chat box. So what is the normal percentage ROI expected by investor for exit and for normal tenure required for the same?
So, see, usually we can assume anywhere between 30 to 35%, but this is not it's a thumb of a rule. It's not a benchmark. It's a benchmark kind of stuff, but it varies depending upon the risk that is involved in the business and the stage at which it is. Obviously, if the stage is early and the risks are high, the investor would expect a higher return, but somewhere between 30 and 35 is a good deal to offer. When it comes about the tenure, one thing very interesting to understand is that VCs especially come with a very limited life. 8 साल की उनकी जिंदगी है. 8 साल में they have to raise funds, they deploy their funds, they exit from the startups, they make money and then give it to their own investors. So their horizon is usually 8 years. So that's what we have to consider, that whenever we are creating the strategy and the projections for the investors, the startup founders and their consultants have to understand that they should not show that company 10-12 साल के बाद grow हो रही है. उतने साल तो VC आपके साथ रहने भी नहीं वाला है. Once the VC comes in, they need a short exit within the 8 years time period. I believe 5 years should be a good time horizon to look into it. Earlier, obviously, the more attractive and the better one. But this is the higher side. Max number is what before which they will need to exit.
Okay. Then one question is.
I would just supplement. Kathy, I'll just supplement a small. There is a great avenue which has opened up in last couple of years is alternate investment funds, where their large amount of money has been raised, and they are predominantly helping both startup companies as also growth, where alpha, beta, gamma test and everything has come up. And those companies, we have been able to secure good funds for growing companies, startup, pre-IPO, angel funding, everything is possible. So avenues are multiple.
True. I would agree, Dinesh ji. In fact, I always feel and believe that for a good company, there is never a shortage of funds. In fact, we
You
are
said it
on
correct.
board of so many investors and they are looking out for good founders and good companies. उनको लग रहा है यार मार्केट में स्टार्टअप्स की शॉर्टेज है, which I also believe is true, not the vice versa.
Yes, it is true. It is true because you can't create innovations. And people are looking for innovations. You yourself have said, what is important is maybe the cost reduction, maybe the way to handle it, maybe to solve a specific problem. As I told you, one example which I gave you for the transport company, the new blood, new generation came and they came with the technology support, and now this is a vibrant company.
Correct.
And there may be other companies who may be having 1,000 fleets with them, but this company with 600 fleets grew faster than the rest of them because the brain, mind, and application and initiatives.
Yep.
Right.
Kathy?
Yeah. So one more question has been raised by Mr. Pinakinji for Nikki. What is the minimum expectation of return by the investor?
I think, Kathy, it's the same thing. We just covered it earlier that 30 to 35% is minimum we believe the investors expect. At the same time, you need to understand, that is where we always say that don't just jump away on the investor saying that I want equity only. Today, there are multiple ways in which the funding amount is structured. Jaise CCPS, CSP, CSOPs. There are many, many ways now in which the new instruments which are used for raising funds. So we would suggest is look into your business plan, look into your financial model, see what your businesses can afford, whether it is debt or equity, and based upon that, what instrument, and then decide what you should be raising or what you should be asking for. But to be precise to his question, 30 to 35% is what a fair return, what an investor would expect within a time frame, and that too for a minimum or a average risk bearing business. The one
I will
that
just
achieve the
supplement.
product market fit.
Yeah, I'll just supplement. Nikki, what you have indicated is probably more specific to startups and
Yes.
companies which are in a startup stage. If you see the different product life cycle or companies' business life cycle, the companies which have reached some kind of a stability, they may be able to raise it at a lower rate of 24-25% IRR also. So it all depends, as you rightly said, the structuring can be done. And that structuring enables the company to be away from the burden, at the same time grow.
Correct.
So I believe we have answered on that. Now, Mr. Hemal wants to know, with the ongoing funding winter, what are the promising sectors to look out for 23-24? So if you can answer,
Nikki,
Nikki.
you would like to, I will, Nikki, you would like to start and maybe I'll supplement it.
Sure. Let's do that. So yes, I will say like this, that investors, चाहे कितनी भी ठंडी हो बाहर या मार्केट में, अच्छे फाउंडर्स और अच्छे बिजनेस के लिए हमेशा माहौल गर्म है. So if yes, your businesses are showing traction, you are able to show your growth, then your businesses will get the fund in whatever sector or whatever downtown the atmosphere is. Even though saying that, there are a few sectors which are favorite sectors, but favorite sectors keep on changing. Like if you would have heard, 6 to 8 months back, SaaS-based companies, deep tech companies, ed tech companies were the favorite sectors for the investors, wherein they would ask for those. अब वो सारे सेक्टर सैचुरेट हो चुके हैं. अभी आप वो लेके जाओगे तो बोलेंगे मैडम बस हो गया, बहुत इन्वेस्टमेंट हो गया इनमें. Now they don't want to go into those sectors further. Saying that, there is no single thing कि भाई नहीं मिलेगा. If the company is good, if the numbers are good, the vision that you are showing is good, promising, then yes, funds can be raised into any sectors. Saying this, I will not definitely say any sector here, because I don't want people to look into the sector front or the fundraise fund. Look into your business, mirror में खुद को देखो, अपने business को funds की जरूरत है, what you will be able to grow out of it, then you can go for investors. Market में जो भी sector चल रहा हो, अगर मुझे जरूरत नहीं है, don't raise funds. You're gonna be wasting your equity. My answer might sound like ये answer नहीं दे रहे, but that's the right answer that you should go for, is what I believe. Dinesh ji,
I will tell you. I'm in US. I'm attending this seminar from US only, and it's middle of the night. Last 10 days back, we've closed a deal, which is around 250 crore for a pharma distribution company again, and it is a medtech company. So from my international exposure, what I have been able to get for the last 1.5 to 2 years, which we have been working with them, people look for scalability and uniqueness and technology, where I can run my business or sell my business on 24/7. That is the area where they are looking at. So while SME IPO is a smaller area, but people are appreciating even the small companies, which has a scalability and bigger values to offer. So sector agnostic, that would be the right word.
So now we'll just quickly end up with one or two questions. One question has been, what is the minimum revenue that company should have while filing for SME IPO?
See, as I told you, the revenue, profitability, and the object of the issue will determine the size. With regard to eligibility, the companies can go for a smaller revenue of 10 crore also. And there are companies who have gone for 200 crore rupees and still they have preferred to go for SME IPO. So those are not the criteria. More importantly, what profitability you are making, what capital you have, how much money you need. Multiple factors. Actually, there are 20 points which we finally go in the deeper analysis. Broadly, I've given 5-6 points.
Okay.
So turnover is one of them actually, and it is not a very serious matter, because if it reads in combination, a small company which has a scalability has maybe 10 crore rupees, a profitability of 40% is more appreciated than a company with 100 crore with 1% profitability. So it all depends on multiple factors actually.
Okay. I believe we have answered this, Nikki. Now, Deepa wants to know what is the exit route or buyback, and even she wants to know that when we are saying 30 to 30% on each year, that is what she wants to know.
Deepa, when we're talking about return, right now I'm focusing upon, as an investor is coming into your business, he's going to be staying with you for a year, making you grow your company. And then either he'll be selling the stake to another bigger investor who will come and help you grow furthermore, or you will go to an IPO and he will get an exit, or maybe you are happy enough to take back his share by paying him the returns. In such scenario, the return that is expected is over his investment that he has made into your business. Obviously, he is expecting the returns per year basis, but depends upon the number of years that he's going to be standing. And as Dinesh ji also rightly mentioned, 30-35, what we are saying is for you to understand. अगर आप 35 के लिए prepared हो और आप उसको ऑफर कर रहे हो, उसका माइंडसेट 25 का ही था, then he feels now I'm getting a good deal. So better be prepared for it. If your business is not able to make returns, which is in the range of at least 20-25% also, then we need to work upon the strategy. We need to work upon the business model and try and make it more efficient. That's the point that I'm trying to push upon. But to answer your question, it will be on the exit that he would calculate his total returns, because most of these investors don't look up like dividend or profit share in the initial phase. They are coming for valuations and they'll take up the exit ke waqt pura higher value.
Let us understand, these people or the private equity people is there to make money. That is one. Second, they are coming with the money and they have a deeper pocket. We have seen in this last COVID time, there were supply issues, there were logistics issues, there were raw material issues, there were many issues, and those people have been reasonable. So even if there is a dip, So in some cases, they have been able to extend from initial 5 years to 6 years, 7 years also. So they are reasonable. They are part of your business. They are there to sustain the business, and they help you in many ways. They help you in expanding your business and be there in thick and thin. So and they drive valuation accordingly. It is not that promoters are paying from their own pocket. They are developing together the business, and the money comes in.
So I think we are just taking up now last question for the day. So what is the minimum revenue that company should have while filing for SME IPO? That has been raised by Rahul.
That has been addressed. That has been
Okay.
addressed. Just now I addressed you.
Okay. So I believe
If he has some specific, if Rahul has some specific thought in mind, he can get in touch with us later.
sure. So people who wants to know more about valuation or SME IPO process, apart from this session, this was wonderful insight, and I believe we have tried to do justice to give maximum questions covered in the webinar. So both the hosts were wonderful, I must say, and it's just that thank you very much for the wonderful and engaging audience. And as Nikki rightly said, that this was my first time, I believe I could do justice to an extent. And
You've done well. You've done well.
thank you so much.
Sorry, Khyati. Please, I would request all our audiences, if you have felt that Khyati did a good job for her first hosting, please give a thumbs up into the chat box. It will give her a motivation to continue and go further. It's not for me, it's for her. But I would expect everyone, please give that. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much. I believe a mentor or a friend or a partner like you would always motivate people like us to come forward. And last but not the least, we'll be sharing, as Nikki rightly told you about our other ventures, we'll be sharing the survey form. We will be happy to know more about it. Also, you guys can definitely let us know if you are looking for any particular topic for the further sessions. We would be happy to share our knowledge, keep sharing our knowledge, anything and everything related to Dineshji or Nikki's topic. They are available. Their contact details will be shared to you. So you guys can get in touch with them. I believe this was wonderful and insightful webinar. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you so much, Khyati. And we have at least 5 thumbs up, so our party is due.
Good.
Thank you, madam. For sure. Thank you so much. We would take your leave.
Thank you, participants. You were all great audience. Thank you very much. And very
so one round of applause to the audience, because they were so interactive that this Q&A session could be more interactive. So thank you for the wonderful audience.
Thank you, Mittal.
Thank you so much.
You have asked whether the recording will be shared. Yes, the recording, it is live on YouTube right away when we are talking. So I will ask my team to share the YouTube link also with all of you. We can go back to it. And I'm sure what we have spoken is a lot to digest, but gallop over it. And we wish all the very best to all the startup founders, company founders that are over here in this meeting and way forward. We wish you all the very best on your journey. Hope you grow well. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki.
Everyone.
Thank you, Khyati. And thank you, Darshak also.
Sure.
Darshak has been there, a guiding force to the all SNCE team. And I'm thankful to him also.
So thank you, Dineshji. As you rightly said that you had been from US at this odd hours of the day, night.
Middle of the night. It's middle of the night at 2:10.
So to be here, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll just take your leave. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.